So, Neil Gaiman sells out Sandman, eh? Well, somewhat. This comes from an interesting tidbit that he offered up back in October, so not that long ago. And hat tip to Gary Buechler or Beekler rather, Nerdrotic, brought this up, and because it flies in the face, more or less, with his take on the cast of Sandman now. So back in October, he was responding to this business that Terry Pratchett's daughter, Rihanna Pratchett, I believe, she was saying that the Watch series, which was supposed to be based on her father's work, Terry Pratchett, she says, it bears no resemblance to it, or something along those lines. And she's just saying, I'm not really criticizing it, I'm not supporting it, I'm just saying that's what it is, and all of that. And then some people, it started up a bit, back and forth on Twitter and whatnot. And then Gaiman weighed in. He said, yes, but the fan base are fans, and they like the source material because it's the source material they like. That's true, Neil. So if you do something else, you risk alienating the fans on a monumental scale. Yeah, that's right. Just ask Star Wars. Yeah. So he continues, it's not Batman if he's now a news reporter in a yellow trench coat with a pet bat. So, yeah, the idea is to purchase the brand name of stories, whether they're novels or comic books and that sort of thing, and to adapt them to films and or television. And the reason you do that is because it primarily for their popularity, especially something along the lines of Star Wars or the superheroes, Batman, and in this case for Neil Gaiman, Sandman, because it has this. It was very popular. It has a fan base to it that they find the stories beloved among them, and all that sort of thing. And so, should you change stuff? Well, there's going to be some problems. And he points this out. So he tries to stay as close. The source material needs to be respected as much as possible. Adaptions, you have to expect it. You have to understand there's going to be some liberties, especially if it's into movies or something like that, because there's not enough time to cover everything for a long-running series. Television's a little different. You would think television could be a little closer to it. But even then, you have to understand there's certain, and then the costs of what happened and what can you recreate that in a live action series from a comic book. And it depends on what it is and what's required. So some stories you might not be able to include, and you got to write around that to make them fit for your new series. Stuff like that is understandable. Case in point, before it went terrible, Walking Dead was a good example of this, where there's certain plot points that were altered and changed, but it also added to the idea that you didn't exactly know what was coming, but the plot points would remain the same. And for the most part, that was true until it got very stupid. But that's but when it was good, it was good. But it's understandable that there were certain differences, and even introducing new characters and that sort of thing that the comic book didn't have. It's fine. It didn't really, it didn't do this at the detriment of the original source material. Well, Sandman, of course, in our current era, suddenly Neil Gaiman's fine with all this gender swapping and race swapping of characters. So the gender swapping most notably is in the case of Lucifer, which will be played by Gwendolyn Christie of Game of Thrones fame, and of course she was Captain Phasma, but it's not her fault. She didn't write all that crap. Captain Phasma could have been a great character, but she was just there to walk around and then die. That was it. But so you can understand that men and women are different, despite what the character says. So there's got to be some changes that now Lucifer is a woman. And I have this image here, the mock-up. I don't think she'll be appearing like this. But, you get the idea. And the actor next to her, I forget his name, sorry, but he's been cast as Dream, or Morpheus, rather, the Sandman, if you will. And put him in a little outfit there. It looks kind of like what he would. I'm assuming he'll have the long hair when he's in there. I don't know. You gotta have any respect for the source material. But probably more iconic than Morpheus himself was his sister Death. And, oh, wow, boy, does she look different, huh? The thing about it is that, yeah, she was, in a lot of ways, probably even more popular. She had her own spinoff series and stuff like that. And she had this cool look, and it was the quintessential goth girl look and all that. And it was based on a real person. So, but she got race swapped for the superficial stupidity of today's world. Now, follow the logic. Why is it Dream black? Well, you have to conclude by this logic. It's because Gaiman and Netflix are racist. Hey, I didn't make these rules. You did. And so, you go through your cast and, oh, well, even though there are different ethnicities throughout the stories, and this is the weird thing about it, that you would have to wokeify Sandman. I mean, there's gay characters in there. There's a trans character, and of course, she dies. Maybe they'll rewrite that where she doesn't. I don't know. And all that. And of course, Desire, they got this guy who's guy. I guess I shouldn't be saying that, but I mean, why doesn't it? And of course, they got all their pronouns out displayed because they want to genuflect to the new religion, and all that stuff. But them's casting stands to reason for Desire, who was always this androgynous character. But that's what Sandman was, so you wouldn't need to. There's nothing really to change about it, But they did, But a bigger problem is Patton Oswalt's in it. But that's another story. But anyway, Sandman was a classic. It was very popular. It had a strong following and all that. And that was back when the Vertigo imprint of DC Comics was at its height, and it was producing all kinds of strange and bizarre and weird stories. But they were all cool and fascinating. Well, maybe not all of them, but at least all of them tried back then. Now it's just cheap, superficial, tokenizing political identity politics crap. And this comes in with something that has such strong material as Sandman. The fear is that here the most important thing you're saying about this series, you're not promoting it, you're not talking about its strength, you're not referring to people who may not know all the stories to any of it. No, you're showing how woke you are. You're showing the pronouns. You're showing your gender and race swaps. Every time any franchise does this, it's troubling. It means story and plot, despite all the source material they've got, is still going to take a back seat to this. And, of course, there's going to be some changes. Every time you have some gender-swapped or race-swapped character, they've got to be excellent and wonderful and perfect and no flaws, and they keep pushing that she's the wiser and, she's better than Sandman, with Death. So, of course, she's going to be this complete Mary Sue character, if you will. Now, granted, look, they're godlike beings and all of this sort of stuff, but she had her act together more than he did. And that's true within the story, but they just emphasize that aspect of it more than anything else. And every time they do this, it says they don't have the confidence in their work, and they're shielding it with this, because if you don't accept Sandman, the series on Netflix, it's because you're racist and or misogynist or anti-LGBTQIA plus, but got to get it all in there or you're getting it wrong. All of that. And that's just the shield for it. This never works. It didn't work for Ghostbusters way back when, the 2016 version, obviously. And it hasn't worked for anything since. And so there's a lot of rumors and speculation that the tide could be turning from this identity crap. And it could very well be. Some would point to the Superman and Lois show that still has time to go down the toilet. But it's been running. It's got a couple of episodes in, and it's looking pretty good. But before the tide turns, the way trends go, Hollywood has to catch up with it, because by the time it takes time to develop series and movies and stuff, and when they push this stuff into it, it plays out long after the trend has died. And so they're just going to have to shove it out there and perhaps right the ship later. So, but they're stuck where they are. You can't suddenly recast this woman after you promote it. It would be a terrible thing to do to her. So she's got the role. It's not her fault. She's a young actress looking for work. They offered it to her. Of course, their story is that, she performed the best. But then, boy, I tell you, that goes against the woke rules as well, because that would mean they actually did audition white women for the role. And you're not supposed to do that. So, yeah, it's a nice story that and if she performs well, great, good for her. I hope she gets roles that aren't treating her like a superficial token the way she is here. But for the producers and for Gaiman himself, this is really cheap and tawdry. And it does fly in the face of his point about source material and respecting it. Because there's going to be some changes here, I can tell you that right now, to reflect what you've done with casting. It's inevitable. So maybe they can pull it off, but every time a franchise, not just in the doing it, but in the, patting themselves on the back about it, making a big deal about that rather than the story itself, it's always a bad sign. Even for something as Sandman, which has great source material. But somebody there doesn't have the confidence in it. Anyway, just another day in the life of today's world in the entertainment world, isn't it? But perhaps tide is changing, but you gotta get another year of stuff before you might notice that they got the message. Thanks for watching and listening. Say, while you're still here, why not like and subscribe and share with your many friends? Yes. Also, check out my mini stores in the link description below. Yes, where you can get t-shirts, hats, mugs, all those goodies with my artwork on them. Oh, yeah. And head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book, Night Night. Oh, yeah. You can also catch me at my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, on RadioMisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on BitChute.com and now on Rumble.com. Oh, my goodness. So many places to watch me and my stuff. Oh, yeah. And if that's not enough for you, well, you can follow me on many social media platforms and say hi to your old pal, Mr. Nailsin.